Okay, so if you're a Subaru owner, you know that feeling, that little jolt when the check engine light pops on. And hey, if you've plugged in a scanner and got back the code P1718, you're probably scratching your head right now, maybe a little worried, but don't be. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what your car is trying to tell you and, more importantly, how to fix it.
All right, so first things first, let's get right into it. That code, P1718, it's not just some random jumble of letters and numbers. Nope, it's a very specific message coming from your car's brain. So what on earth is it trying to say?
You got to think of any error code as your car trying to talk to you, right? It's its way of saying, hey, something's not quite right over here. So the big question we're tackling today is, what is your Subaru actually trying to tell you with this P1718 code?
Well, to put it simply, the P1718 code means there's a communication breakdown. It's like a dropped call between two really important parts of your car. Now, to really get what that means, we've got to take a quick look at the system that's in charge of all that chatter.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, we need to understand where the problem is happening. You know, modern cars are just packed with computers and sensors, and they all have this incredible network that honestly works a lot like a nervous system in a living thing.
And that system has a name. It's called the Controller Area Network, or CAN for short. Just think of it as the digital superhighway inside your car. It's what lets all the different computers, the one for the engine, the one for the brakes, you name it, talk to each other constantly, sharing all this critical info in real time.
Seriously, that central nervous system analogy, it's spot on. The CAN system is zipping messages back and forth between all the important parts of your car, making sure everything is working together perfectly. So when that flow of information gets messed up, even just for a second, it can throw up an error code, like P1718.
Okay, so if the car's nervous system is on the fritz, we need to figure out why. It's time to play detective and figure out what's causing this communication breakdown. And it turns out there are usually 4 main culprits we need to look at for this specific code. Let's go ahead and line up the usual suspects. In almost every case, that P1718 code is going to be triggered by one of these 4 things. You've got an issue with the physical wires, a glitch in one of the main computer modules, an error in a related network, or the main communication hub itself has failed. Let's dig into each one. All right, just identifying the possible causes is a huge step. But, knowing the problem is only half the battle, right? So now, let's get down to business and walk through the solutions for each of our 4 suspects one by one.
Okay, cause number 1, and honestly, this is often the most common one. An open or shorted CAN communication line. Now that's just a fancy way of saying there's a physical problem with the wiring. Maybe a wire's frayed, or it got cut, or it's just plain disconnected. That creates an open. Or it could be touching metal where it shouldn't be, which creates a short. The good news is the solution here is pretty straightforward. It really just comes down to a careful visual inspection of all the wiring and connectors in that circuit. You or your mechanic will be on the lookout for anything that looks off. Frayed wires, any green crusty corrosion on the little metal pins, or connections that just feel loose. Then it's just a matter of repairing or replacing whatever's damaged.
All right, let's move on to suspect number 2. Sometimes the problem isn't with the wires, but with one of the brains of the operation. Specifically, this error can come from the engine control module, that's the ECM, or the computer that handles your anti-lock brakes and vehicle dynamics control, the ABS/VDCCM.
Now here's the thing. Unlike a wire that you can patch up, if one of these super complex control modules has gone bad, the only real solution is to replace it. When these things fail on the inside, they just can't talk to the rest of the car anymore. So a new one has to go in to get that network back online.
Our third potential culprit is something called a LAN system error. LAN stands for Local Area Network, and it's just another piece of your car's big communication puzzle. A hiccup here can cause the exact same symptoms and trigger that same P1718 code.
And you know what? A lot like our first suspect, the fix here starts with getting your hands dirty and doing an inspection. You've got to check the LAN system's wires and connectors really carefully for any signs of damage or corrosion that might be blocking the signal, and then of course make the needed repairs.
And that brings us to our 4th and final common cause. See, sometimes the problem isn't the wires or the individual computers, it's the main hub itself, the CAN communication module that's basically directing all that digital traffic.
And it's really important to know, if this main communication hub is the problem, it's not something that gets repaired. The only way to fix it for good is to replace the faulty module completely. That's what gets the whole network talking to each other properly again.
Okay, we've covered the system,
We've gone through the causes, and we've talked about the solutions. So now let's just boil all of this down into a simple, clear action plan to help you get a handle on this P1718 code and get your Subaru back on the road running like it should.
So here's your game plan. First, it all starts with figuring out which of our 4 suspects is the real problem. Proper diagnosis is key. From there, your next step should almost always be a really thorough inspection of all the wiring and connections. And finally, if it turns out a control module is the bad guy, replacement is the answer. If you follow these steps, you've got the best shot at fixing that P1718 code for good.
So remember, that check engine light, that P1718 code, it's not just an annoyance, it's your Subaru trying to communicate with you. And now, you've got a much better idea of what it's trying to say. The only question left is, are you ready to listen?